Well, hello Internet, and welcome to part 2 of my Visual Basic tutorial. In this part of the tutorial, I'm going to cover math functions, strings, dates, subroutines, functions, arrays, for loops, and a whole bunch more. And like always, all the code is available in the description underneath the video, and I have a lot to do, so let's get into it. Alright, so to start off here, I'm going to create a new project, and it's going to be a Windows Form app again, and I'm going to call it vbtut2, but the name doesn't matter, and I'm going to click on OK. It's going to create my project for me, and you can see the little form that I have here. And I am going to come in here and first off create a text box. And if you open up Visual Studio and you do not see the toolbox, just scroll down here to the bottom of the screen or zoom in or whatever and click on that, and you will see your toolbox that's going to have all of your little components you'll be able to use. And what we want to do here first off is come down here where it says text box, and I'm going to drag a text box up here inside of my form and drop that inside of there. I'm going to grab this window here and expand it a little bit, and we're going to mainly be printing out to this text box in this tutorial. And if you want to be able to have a text box to have multiple lines, what we're going to do is make sure we have that selected, of course, and I'm just going to leave this be called text box 1. And you're going to want to come in here and find multi-line, wherever that is, that's right here. And you're going to want to set this to true instead of false. We're then probably going to want to use scroll bars, so select scroll bars and come in here and set those to vertical. And then you're also going to want to come down here where word wrap is and make sure that that is also set to true. Now that we have that set up, we can resize our little text box, and I'm also going to throw in a button. So just find a button right here, drag it up here, and I'm going to throw it right here in the bottom of the screen. I'm going to zoom in here and select this and call this button update, and then come down into the text area inside of here and we'll call this update. And that is basically all we're going to do inside of the form area. Now I'm going to jump in here, click on or double click on update, and this is going to give us our code window. Now this is a little bit hard to read, so I'm going to come in here to the tools section and come down to options, and this will allow me to enlarge my font. And I'm going to come in here, select this guy, and it doesn't give me an option that's big enough, so I'm going to change this to 38 and hit enter, and then I'm going to click on OK, and that's going to make my text real nice and big so you guys can see everything that I'm doing. Now previously I didn't describe everything that was going on here in this subroutine, so now I'll do that. Basically, private means that this subroutine is only going to be able to be called from code that lies within our class, and this is our class right here, as you can see. So that's basically what private means. Sub means that this is a method that does not return a value. Button update click is the name for our subroutine. And then right here inside of these parentheses, I'll get into the specifics of the object and event arguments and all that later on in the tutorial series. But basically anything within parentheses are going to be parameters that are going to be sent to our subroutine to execute. And then right here, handles is going to define that this is called when the event is triggered, and that event that is being watched is whenever we click on button update. So that's just an overview of everything that's going on right there. Now, something that was brought up in a previous part of the tutorial was what happens if we go and create a variable inside of Visual Basic and we do not give it a defined data type. Well, I'm going to show you. So I'm going to go text box, and this is text box 1, and I'm going to set the text for it inside of here, and I'm going to get the data type of a random number, and we will place that inside of there. So not only will you see what happens whenever you do not assign a data type to a variable, but you'll also see the way that you would be able to get the data type. So let's just save that and let's run this. And you can see it opens up right here, and we can come in and say update, and you can see that it shows up as a double. So basically, if you do not define the data type, it is going to decide it for you. So that's just that simple. And let's also come in here to our form and let's change the size of this. And you do that inside of font right here. And we could just open all of this up and let's change it to something that's a little bit easier to see. Let's say 18. And let's see if that works out better for us. And it'll jump back over inside of here. All right, so that is how that stuff works. Now I'd like to go over some math functions and also talk about strings and new lines and a whole bunch of other different things. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to define a string. I'll call this a text output. And then I'll say as string to define that it is indeed a string. And let's say that we want to get the absolute value for a function. So I'm going to say absolute and -19 is going to be equal to, and no, I am not going to individually type all of the possible different math functions inside of here. I'm going to speed through it, but I'm going to cover some things here first. So if you want to get the absolute value, what you would do is type in math.abs and then throw in whatever you want your value to be. And of course, we're able to join or concatenate our different values and strings using the and inside of there, as you can see. And if you would like to then go in and throw in a new line inside of your text box, you're going to type in environment and new line. And what this is going to do is add a platform specific new line inside of that text box. And then what we'll be able to do here is then assign the value of text output over inside of our text box. And how we're going to do that is just go to text box 1 is equal to .text is equal to text output. And while we're doing this, why don't we go and also output another piece of information, and I'll just show you another math function. A shortcut, if you want to take what is already inside of text output and then amend to the end of it some more additional information, you can come in here and go and is equal to, right like that. And let's say that we want to also use the ceiling function to see how that would work for us. We just go in here like this, and then we'll say math.ceiling and throw in 4.5. And then at the end of that, we're also going to throw in an additional new line. So like this and like that. And if we save it and run it, you're going to see whenever we click on update that it puts out the absolute value as well as the ceiling, or it rounds it up. And I spelled ceiling wrong, but that's perfectly okay. All right, so that is how that would work. And now we'll go and take a look at some additional math functions we can work with. And I'm using exactly the same format here as I used before. You can see right here, we can also have floor, which is going to round down a value and print that out on the screen. We can also find here e raised to the specified power, and e, of course, is going to be 2.718. You're also going to be able to return the natural logarithm right here, as well as being able to return the base 10 logarithm. You're also going to be able to use the max function right here, and it's just going to return whichever of those values is larger. And here also the min function is going to return the value that's smaller. We're going to be able to return the number to the power of another number. So this is going to be 5 squared in this situation. Likewise, we would be able to get the square root of a number, and there is also an additional round function that is going to either round up if the value is 0.5 or higher, or round down if it is less than 0.5. And if we save that and we run that, you're going to see all of these different functions here work on our screen. And there you can see absolute value, the ceiling, the floor, and all of the additional functions that we have here available to us inside of Visual Basic. And of course, you're also going to have the option to use cosine. Here, I'll just show you the cosine function. Everything is going to be uppercase. So you're going to have cosine and sine and tangent and arc cosine, arc sine, arc tangent, cosine, da 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 da. Okay, so those are all of the additional math functions that are available to you. Another thing that's kind of interesting here is you are going to be able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide numbers, and then save those values back to themselves, much as we were able to do here with our strings, being able to amend to the end of those or append to the end of them. So I'm going to say, let's go and create a random integer and give it the value of 10. Then we can come in and say random int and we can do plus equal to 10, right, like that. And like I said, you can do that for subtract, multiply, divide, and so forth and so on. And then we would be able to go and let's just copy this and paste that inside of there and do something like 10 plus 10. Promise the tutorial is going to get a little bit more excited here in a moment. You're also going to be able to come in there and just throw in random int just like that and output that information on the screen. And one other thing that is important to know in regards to the different data types is if you have random int like this and it is defined as an integer, so we'll say as integer, that is going to mean that if you come in here and let's say we take random integer and then multiply it times 0.13 and then save it back into its own version, if you would go and output that, you may be surprised by your results. So we'll just say 20 times 0.13 and I'm going to let you see what that is. So let's go and run it. And indeed, if we run that, you're going to see that you are going to get a value of 3. And that is completely wrong. And the reason why is you said that random integer is an integer right here. And that means that even if you try later on to assign it as a decimal or a double or float value, it is still going to round down and remain an integer. So that's just some important information to be aware of if you're going to be using math functions inside of Visual Basic. And now I'd like to talk about some string functions that are available. So we're going to come in here and we're going to create a random string, and we'll come in here and you're going to surround all of your strings with double quotes like this. And I'm going to say here, this is a string, just to keep it simple. We can come in here now and we can output like this and equal to, let's say we wanted to get the random string's length. We could do that. We're going to be able to get that with just typing in random string followed by the word length. And then of course, if we want to put a new line inside of here, we would go environment and new line like that. And let's do a whole bunch of string functions just so you can see what they look like. You're also going to be able to start at a specific index and return a certain number of letters after it. So let's just go and let's copy this and let's go and create a whole bunch of these different guys. So in this situation, let's say that we want to get the first 3 letters inside of a string. We would just come in here and go random string, and then instead of length, we would type in substring. And if we want to get to the first 3, we're going to start off at the 0 index, and then we're going to get the next 3 values after that. Let's go and get some more things. You're also going to be able to replace a string. So if we'd say that we wanted to do, let's change this to changed string, and let's go and change the string on a different line. So we'll go random string is going to be equal to random string and replace, and let's say that we want to replace the word string with the word, make sure this is string lowercase, with the word sentence. Could do that, and this is going to output that change in value. We'll just get rid of that right there. We're also going to be able to format values in multiple different ways. So let's say that we create a decimal. So let's call this decimal random num and then as decimal, and give it the value of 3123.14159, and we will edit this in multiple different ways. So let's do text output, and here I'll just put value. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be able to format this guy in multiple different ways by going string.format. And then inside of here, let's say that we would like to use a 1000 separator if needed, as well as cut down the decimals to just 3 decimal places. What we would do inside of here is we would put a curly bracket and 0:n3, 3, another curly bracket, and then close that off, and then we would put our random number inside of there like that, and then close this off. And why don't we run this to see all the different things we just did, and update, and there you can see it threw in the 1000 separator and cut down the decimal places to 142. You're also going to see here that it printed out the string length as well as the first 3 characters, and then it went and changed the string for us. We're going to be able to format values in other different ways as well. So let's say that we would want to have this be converted into currency automatically, which means 1000 separator plus a $sign plus it's going to be rounded to 2 decimal places. We can do all that. Once again, we're going to be using string format. So let's just go and copy that guy and let's paste this inside of here. Now, however, since you're working with currency, what you're going to do is put a C inside of there instead of the N. Everything else will be exactly the same, so you don't need to change any of that stuff. And we could also come in here and define specific ways that we would like to format our numbers inside of here. So for this guy, I'm just going to put random just for whatever. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to define that I want to show at least 5 numbers before the decimal place. So I can just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I want to cut this down to just 1 decimal. And I can do that right there. And let's just go and run it to see how that changed everything. And click on update. And here you can see it went and threw a leading 0 inside of there. Cut that down to 1 decimal place. You can also see here with the currency, I put in the $sign, 1000 separator, as well as the decimal place, and then cut it down to 2 digits. Okay, so just a whole bunch of different ways you can format inside of Visual Basic. And now if you replace the C or the N in this situation, there's a whole bunch of other different guys. There's also the G, and what that's going to do for us is display without a thousands separator. F is going to display with at least 1 number on the left and right of the decimal at all times. P is going to multiply the number times 100 and then show the % sign next to it. And E is going to display whatever value you have inside of there as exponential notation. Let's go in here and do a couple more different things with strings. We're also going to be able to come in and get the first location of a string that is defined inside of here. So let's throw that right there. And for this guy, I'm going to say eyes in string, and let's go and get the first matching I inside of our string here. And to do so, you're going to type in string like that. You're going to say that you want to start at the very first character searching inside of it, and the string you're specifically going to be searching is going to be random string, and then the string you are going to be looking for is actually going to be an individual character, which is going to be an I. And then we want to use the compare method that is text because we are working with text. Now let's go and create a couple other different things. I'm going to get more into arrays in detail in a later tutorial, but now I'd like to just show you arrays so that I can show you how strings and arrays work together. Now, if you would like to create a fixed size array, which means in this situation, I'm going to create an array that is going to hold 3 values. And arrays are just used to store multiple values. That's the only point in their existence. Well, what you do is just go dim array like that. And let's say that I want to have an employees array. It's going to start at the 0 index, and it is going to continue to the 2nd index. So that's going to be 0, 1, 2. So that means that this is going to be a fixed size, and it is going to hold 3 different pieces of data. Now, they don't have to always be fixed size. Like I said, in the next tutorial, I'll cover arrays in more detail. Now, if you want to then, after you created your array, you want to come in here and throw in a value inside of your array. You could come in and say that the first employee is going to be Bob, and the second employee is going to be Sally, and the last one is going to be Paul. There you go. You just created an array. Now you're going to be able to join array values into a string, which is the reason why I brought up arrays all together. So we can go string employees as string is equal to, and then call the function join on the array. And you're just going to come in and go employees. And then you can then define how these different pieces of data are going to be separated from each other inside of the new string that's created. And I'm going to say that I want to put a comma and a space between each of them inside of the string. And then let's go and output this information on the screen. And I'm just going to change this to employees and then get rid of all this stuff and then go string employees like that. And let's run it and see all the different changes that we've made so far and bring that up and update it. And here you can see that it not only printed out all of those different values that were stored inside of the array, but it also separated them with commas. And you can see also here with the i's in string that it found the very first I within our string at the third index place. Okay? So there's a whole bunch of other different things, and we'll continue making some more. Now you may say, well, if you're able to turn an array into a string, how do you turn a string into an array? Well, you can come in here and just go array employees and call the split function and string employees right there again. And here you're going to define how these different pieces of data are separated, and we know that they're separated with a comma and a space, so there you go. And then of course we're going to be able to output this information. And then we want to cycle through all of these individual different pieces of data inside of our array and print them out one by one. But how would you do that? Well, you would do that with a for loop. Once again, this is the basics of a for loop, but I'm going to get more in detail in them in the next part of the tutorial. Now basically, this is just going to do the same thing a defined number of times. And this guy right here, I, is going to increment each time we cycle through our for loop, and we have to define the data type for that. And I'm going to give it a starting value of 0, which is going to be the 0 index or the first place inside of our array. And then I have to define how long this is going to cycle. So I'm going to say that it's going to cycle for each value inside of our array. However, since we have the array starts off with index number 0, we want to subtract 1 from that. So we're going to continue increasing the value of I each time we cycle through here up until the point in which we get to the end of the very last index in our array. And I just want to output this information on the screen. Here I'm just going to say employee. And then if I want to get each individual guy inside of the array or each individual employee inside of the array, I would just go array employees and then throw I inside of it. And it's going to basically increment each time and show you each individual person inside of there. And we just run it and see that that's true. And there you can see it printed out Bob, Sally, and Paul. Now there are a bunch of different string functions inside of here. I'm going to show you most of the main ones that you're more than likely to ever want. Let's say that we wanted to get the left or the first 3 values inside of a string. You're going to use a function, and it's going to be strings left, and you're going to pass into it the string you want to search for, or you want to search in, and you're saying right here you want the first 3 characters inside of it. We can also come in here and get the right 3 if you'd like to do that. So we'll say right 3 instead, and we'll just change that to right. There's a bunch of other different functions. Let's say that we would want to take our string and put it in uppercase. Go uppercase, change this to U case, and then get rid of the 3, of course. Likewise, we're going to be able to put all of our characters in lowercase, and then just change this to LC. We're also going to be able to take a string and completely reverse it. So just change this to reverse, and that's just going to make the very first letter the last one, and then the very last one the first one, and so forth and so on. And for this guy, you're going to put string reverse, and we're also going to be able to compare strings. Throw this in there. And so let's say that we want to compare the string dog compared to cat. We would just come in and type in string compare, and the very first thing we're comparing, which is going to be the string dog, followed by this second thing that we're going to be comparing, which is going to be cat. We are then going to be comparing text here. So we're going to say compare method text, and then close that off. And the final thing we can do here with strings is we can trim whitespace off of them. So throw this inside of there, and I'll just say trim, and then call the trim function, and 1, 2, 3, and we'll put string, and then 1, 2, 3, and you're going to see that that whitespace was deleted. And we run it, bring it over here, update it, and you're going to see if we scroll down inside of here that we were able to come in and grab the first 3 characters, the last 3 characters, change the entire string to uppercase, change the entire string to lowercase, reverse the string, and compared the string dog to cat. And what that 1 means there is that the compare function is going to return 1. If the very first string sorts after the second one, it's going to return a 0 if the 2 strings are equal, and it's going to return a -1 if the first string sorts ahead of the second one. And you can also see here with trim that it deleted all the white space at the beginning as well as the end of the string. And also there is another function called ltrim like that, and that's just going to get rid of white space on the left side. And there is rtrim, which is going to get rid of the white space on the right side. So that's all we're going to cover for strings right at the moment. So now I'm going to jump over and talk about dates. Now, a date is another data type that's available inside of Visual Basic, and to define one, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say that I want to get a date, which is going to be the current date as of the moment it's created, and to do so, I just go now, and there it is. So whenever the program is started, that is going to be when that value is assigned. Now, once we go and create it, we're going to be able to come in here and get individual pieces of the data as well as get all of the data information all at one time. So what I'm going to do is, let's say that I just want the month. I can get that. And how I get the month is just by going and then DTE current and month. Pretty easy to remember. And then likewise, I'm going to be able to get a whole other plethora of different data information. So here is pretty much everything you'd want. So there's month, there's day. All you do is print day inside of there instead of month. Pretty easy to remember. Year, just put year inside of there. Hour, minute, second. And like I said, it's all of that information based off of whenever the program first started running. Also, you would be able to get the day name by typing in the whatever the date is, and then followed with .to string, and then DDDDD inside of quotes inside of there like that. And yes, they have to be in lowercase. You could also get the month name, and once again, to do so, you would put MMMM all uppercase. Now let's go and run that, see how that looks. Bring it over here and update, and there you can see. So at the moment that I created this, that was in December, the 2nd day of December 2016, 13:57, second 49, and here you can see that I got the day name as well as the month name. Now you're not tied to creating dates that are just based off of whatever the current system time is. You can also come in and create your own date. So what I'm going to do is go and say very important date like this. And to create your own date, you're going to put a hash symbol followed by 12/21/1974 and 11:32, no seconds. And this is going to be AM, and then another hash symbol. So that's how you create a custom date. And let's go and call this dim as date. And then of course you're going to be able to print out the month and date and the day and year and all that other stuff, of course. But let's go and also show you an additional thing. Let's say that you wanted to print out the full information. So let's just change this to date like that. And to get that, we're going to copy this guy right here, paste that in right there. So there's that wonderful date. And if you wanted to get the long time all in one place, you could do so by just going in to long time string. And let's go and throw a space inside of there like that. Throw another and inside of there like this. And then here I'm going to get the same exact date that we had before. Actually, I'm going to copy this entire thing, paste that inside of there, throw another and symbol inside of there, and change this to long date string like that. And if we run it just to see that it worked and click on update, you could see that it did. So there's a whole bunch of different things you can do with dates. Now I'd like to talk about methods. Now we use methods to promote code reuse as well as to break code into parts so that it is easier to understand. And you're not only tied to creating subroutines that are tied to event handlers, but you can just create subroutines that do anything. Now you're going to use a subroutine instead of a function whenever you don't need to return a value. Now remember, I'm going to create a subroutine here. Remember, the private means that this subroutine can only be called from inside of our class, and it is subroutine. That's what that means. I'm going to give it a name of show message. It doesn't receive any parameters, so there that is. And what this is going to do, quite simply, is just open up a message box, and it's going to say hello again. And then the title at the top is going to say love saying hello. And if we want to call this subroutine just inside of here anywhere, we can come in and just go show message like that, and that's all we need to do. So whenever the option button is clicked this time, it is going to open up a message box, and there you can see right there. So let's close that, and let's look at how we can pass a value into a method. And to do so, we're going to use a function instead of a subroutine. So once again, I'm going to say private, and I'm going to say function, and I'm going to call this getSum. It is going to receive a value that I'm going to call num1, and it is going to be an integer. It's also going to receive another value called num2, and it's also going to be an integer. And this guy is going to return a value. So we're going to say return num1 plus num2. Now up inside of here, we're going to get rid of this guy right there, and instead we're going to call our new getSum function. So we'll say text output and is equal to, and we'll say 6 plus 5 is going to be equal to, and then we'll call our function, and that is getSum, of course, and make sure it's spelled exactly the right way, and then pass 6 and 5 inside of there. And if we run it and click on update, you're going to see that it went and called that function, and then that value was returned, and then it went inside of our little text box. Now, whenever you're working with subroutines as well as functions, it's very important to understand how values change inside of functions and how they affect values outside of functions. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an integer value, and I'm going to give it the value of 10. I'm then going to create a subroutine down inside of here. Actually, I'm not using this stuff, so I can delete all this altogether. And this is going to be private subroutine. I'm going to try to change the value inside of my regular code. So it's going to get passed integer value. And of course, as we said, this is going to be an integer, just as you saw previously. And inside of here, it is going to change the value of integer value to 20. And then it is going to open up a message box and display the new value for the integer value. So here I'm going to say integer value in function 1 is going to be equal to, and then I will get that value and print it out. So integer value, and we'll say environment dot new line. So that's going to print out the value of integer value inside of the function. And then what I'm going to do up here is print out the value outside of the function. So I'm going to call change value and pass it the integer value. You might be surprised by what goes on here. And then I'm going to output the value outside of the function. So here I will say integer value out of function 1. And here we can just, of course, come in and go integer value. Now let's run it and see what happens. Once again, we assign the value of 10 to it, and then inside of this function, we change that value to 20. So what happens when we click update? Well, you can see right here, inside the function, we are going to print out that the new value for the integer value variable is going to be equal to 20, and click on OK. However, it is still 10 inside of the regular code outside of the function. So how is that? Well, basically inside of Visual Basic, if you pass a variable to a function, what you're actually doing is passing that variable's value. You're not passing the variable itself. And that is the reason why the value doesn't change in the regular code, even though the value changed inside of our function. Visual Basic, however, does allow you to actually pass the variable itself, and you just have to make a couple little simple changes to have that work. Basically, inside of here where we have change value, we're going to change this to by reference, and we'll change this to 30 just to show that something changed. And now if we go and run this, you're going to see that this time the value is going to change inside of the function, and it's also going to change outside. So we'll click on update. See right there, the value is 30, and when we click on OK, you're going to see also in the regular code that it's 30. So you can either pass by value or pass by reference. It is completely up to you. And now to finish off this tutorial series, what I'd like to do is come in here and show you how to create functions that allow you to receive a variable number of parameters and then work with those. So we'll go private and have this be a function. It's going to return a value. I'm going to call this get some more, and I want to receive by value. That's the default. By reference is not the default. Just wanted to show you how to do that. And here what we're going to do is, if we don't have any idea how many different parameters we're going to be sent, we're going to put parameter array inside of there like that. And I'm going to call this numbers as, and this is an array, just like you saw previously, and the values in the array are going to be integers, and that's what I'm defining right there. Now what I'm going to do is create a sum variable as integer and give this a value of 0. I'm then going to create a for loop inside of here that's going to cycle through all those array values. So that's for I as integer, going to start off with value of 0 to numbers length, and then I'm going to go sum plus equal to whatever the value of I is each time. And then after that is all finished off, I'm going to return the sum to whoever calls this function. I'm going to call this function up here, and here I'll just replace this all together, and I'll put 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, and then I'll call my function get some more, and then I'll throw in 1, 2, 3, and 4. See, it has no idea how many parameters are coming, and it's just going to work. We'll do that, we'll do this, we'll click update, and that comes up, and you can see that it adds those values. So there you go, guys. That is a whole bunch of other different things you can do with Visual Basic. In the next part of the tutorial, I'm going to cover arrays and for loops and conditionals and a whole bunch of other different things. And like always, please leave your questions and comments below. Otherwise, till next time.